All right, welcome to the Mental Health Happy Hour. I am Jason Cottom, the bipolar DM, and want to welcome you along with our co-host J.R. Reed. And we
Oh,
have a great topic today. We talked a little bit last week about PTSD, and right now we're going to continue on this conversation. This is not like a public service announcement. This is going to be a conversation about living with PTSD. A lot of us have it, especially those of us who served in the military. But it's not just military too, or veterans. Civilians get it too from all kinds of trauma, whether it's sexual assault, car accident, violent crime. PTSD is becoming people are becoming more aware of it and more understanding of PTSD and what it is. And we're going to talk about what it is and what it's not.
right. Well, Jason, why don't we introduce our guest? We have Blue.
We have Blue, who's an
You
Army
can talk.
veteran.
You can talk if you want to, Blue. You don't have to just wave your hand.
I don't actually know what to say yet.
Oh, I was just saying hi.
Hi, my name's Blue. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm happy to
And
be here.
and Ed, thank you for joining us as well.
Hi everyone. Thanks for the
Okay, well, I guess my first question would be, and I'm going to go to Blue first. Tell us as much as you're comfortable with, kind of how your PTSD incident, or what caused it, and how it's affected your life since then.
I am a U.S. Army veteran, so I was a combat medic and I served in Afghanistan. I would say that my PTSD is kind of like one of my built-in best friends, whether you want it there or not. So,
Much like my autism.
yes.
Okay. Ed, you want to talk to us a little bit about the same thing?
Well, I have to say first that I'm an autistic person too, so I think my problem comes from. I mean, we have uh, specific uh, conversation or experience in our childhood that make this hard for us.
Absolutely. Jason, you want to talk about yours a little bit?
Yeah. I'm a combat medic as well, U.S. Army, but I am not a combat veteran. I served at Walter Reed, so I was actually ER, ambulance, and air evac during the Bosnian War.
Which for those who don't know, Walter Reed is the premier Army hospital in the U.S. in D.C.
Yep, and I was at the old Walter Reed, the one that was actually within D.C. They have moved Walter Reed to what was Bethesda Naval Hospital. But now they've renamed it, rechristened it Walter Reed Army Medical Center. But I was actually in D.C., working ER, worked ambulance, and also worked air evac. Got a lot of combat injuries coming in from Bosnia and overseas. I got exposed in the embassy bombings of Kenya and Tanzania. The U.S. military brought over the civilian casualties from the embassy bombings of Kenya and Tanzania too, back in the 90s. And that was where I think my PTSD came from, was from that incident, because there was a lot of women and children involved in that. And kids had always been the toughest thing on me. Even before I joined the Army, I was a firefighter and EMT. My first call as an EMT was a kid that got backed over by his mother in a church parking lot. I was actually at the parking lot when it happened. And it stuck with me for a long time. Still does. Anyways, I had a lot of problems with PTSD, especially with the military's, at that time, the military's attitude towards it, which was, if you were not in combat, you do not get PTSD. That was the official stance of the U.S. Army at that time when I was in. It wasn't until about 2002 that Congress amended that and included combat medics and other assault victims under that. They kind of expanded it out so that combat medics who were not in combat, and also like those who had trauma of sexual assault or other kind of trauma or violence against them, could also get PTSD too. And so the military was kind of slow, very slow, in coming around and recognizing that PTSD can happen to anybody and for a variety of reasons.
So basically, in short, what you're saying is the military finally pulled their heads out and realized what we knew all along.
Oh yeah, I mean, and going back over just the last century, from World War I, it used to be called shell shock. Then it became battle fatigue in World War II and Vietnam. Then it was coined PTSD, and then now, of course, we had the Gulf War and stuff like that. And the military was very slow in coming around, especially military culture when it comes to veterans and active duty, and how they treated us with PTSD as if we were broken, that we were useless, that we were no longer a viable soldier. And I got put out of the Army without retirement benefits or anything like that. I got screwed over by my command because they wouldn't recognize that I had PTSD or any other problems.
Right. Hey, and by the way, for anybody who's watching right now, please use the comment section, ask questions, make comments, and we'll address them. Blue, I got a question for you. You said you were in Afghanistan, right?
Yes, sir.
So what do you think about the fact that we just completely pulled out yesterday? Is it, you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't. It breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And I would entirely be suicidal right now if I didn't have such an incredible support system.
Well, let's talk about that a minute. I mean, how do you can say who your support system is or not, I don't care, but how do you use your support system to help you on a daily basis?
My husband has been talking to me a lot about everything that's going on in Afghanistan. He's very helpful because he's like resigned in nature, so he doesn't have that big emotional response to my pain. Mm-hmm. Right. So I've always found that to be super helpful, because if you ask regular civilians, I don't know what you would be, what to call them other than civilians. That's, I guess, how my brain works. But if I talk to any of my girlfriends or even my guy friends about it who haven't been in service, it just, like, I can tell it costs a lot for them to hear what I have to say. Like, mentally for them, it stresses them out a lot because they just don't experience it.
I'm sure it does. And yeah, I think civilians was the right word. I mean, your non-military friends.
Yes.
Now, Edgar, your trauma was a little bit different than, the medical stuff that Blue and Jason went through, but do you have a support system, and how do you use that support system in your life?
Well, I'm not so sure about it. Well, I have to say, English is not my first language, so I'm sorry if I can mistake the language that I can have. So for me, it's very hard because it's a lot different. I mean, here you guys, I feel like a child crying about nothing. But there is a problem just there. It feels like nothing's happened, everything's well. In fact, internally, it has a lot of pain. In my case, I really don't have a support system. Well, my wife is, but we are on our own. We are all alone. My wife, our child, I have another son, but the rest of my family are. There are people about it, so it's hard to everyone.
I get that. Jason, same thing for you.
Yeah. A lot of my support system is actually online. Like with Blue, we connected at No Barriers. We have a lot of other friends through No Barriers, which is a great program. If you're a veteran, look up No Barriers. They do backpacking, camping, whitewater rafting, and it specializes for veterans. And also they also help with youth and stuff like that. So they got some other programs too. But a lot of my support network, like UJR, my ex-wife, I got friends not very many friends I talk to about this, but most of my support system is on the internet.
Okay. Okay. Well, you brought up social media. I'm sure there's a lot of Facebook groups, but how does social media aid in your journey with PTSD?
Well, first of all, I don't feel alone. One of the biggest problems with mental illness and also mental health is that we tend to isolate ourselves a lot, especially when we have experienced trauma, and we don't want to be a burden upon other people. We don't want to share. And seeing comments from other people saying, "Hey, I'm struggling. I'm having a bad time. It's been a bad day," or "I'm having a great day. I'm having a good time. I'm having a good," those things help a lot. And then also being able to reach out and offer advice that when I can and support. Social media has been a great thing to help me out in reaching out, just because I don't get out of the house very much. I'm very much kind of a homebody. I mean, I don't work, so I got nowhere else to go. So I kind of depend on my internet and social media for a lot of my support.
Yeah. And I'll say this, I dealt with a lot of trauma growing up too, being autistic before there was even people knew what autism was. So I like to say that I grew up without a spectrum to be on, and I dealt with a lot of, verbal trauma and bullying and stuff. But, I've had a psychologist in the past say that that's PTSD, but I really don't look at it for me that way.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know if it is or not, but it's, it's just something that I dealt with and I try to put behind me.
Yeah, childhood trauma is also a big cause for PTSD. I mean, I had a rough childhood. I was a military brat, bullied a lot. My dad was very hardcore Navy, so he was like a drill sergeant. So growing up was pretty rough, and I have some issues from that too. But yeah, don't for those of you also who out there who have suffered childhood trauma, abuse, or anything like that. Don't discount what has happened to you and lessen it, saying that, well, I haven't been in combat, I wasn't assaulted, or any of those things. What has happened to you is just as valid as what has gone on with anybody else in their lives as well. Mm-hmm. Everybody's burden is their own. And so don't compare what happens to one person to another. Because, I mean, when you go down that road, you start doubting yourself, you start doubting your diagnosis, you start doubting your treatment and your coping skills, because you kind of push it off. And it's a very dangerous thing to do, especially when you're talking about dealing with trauma.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's not that I don't, or that I'm scared of saying I have PTSD, because if I find out one day that that's truly what it is, I have no problem admitting it and saying it's just at this, right now, I don't know whether or not I would consider it PTSD. So, oh wow, I had a question. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, yeah. Now I'm drawing a blank.
Autistic moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bipolar moment at there, but if you have had trauma, or if you're having some of the signs and symptoms of PTSD, such as recurring thoughts of the incident, avoidance, whether you're trying to avoid it thinking, avoiding physically, anything that will trigger you or set you off, there's a lot of signs and symptoms for PTSD. So don't be so quick, people, to discount your signs and symptoms. They're very important to you and to your well-being. And when you deny yourself and deny, what's really going on in your head, what's going on with you, you do yourself a disservice, and you do people around you a disservice too, because you rob them of you. Because PTSD does take a lot away from us. It kind of takes away our identity sometimes when we feel like that is all we are. Just a big bag of scars and broken bones that have not healed properly. And so, don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of the diagnosis. Don't be afraid of the treatment. And I highly encourage you, if you're having problems, get help. I mean, there's online resources. If you're a veteran, there's the VA system. They're getting better. They're not great, but they're getting better. Civilian doctors, don't hesitate to get help and reach out if you are going through a trauma right now.
Right. And, that's actually where I was going, was with triggers. So, Blue, when you get triggered by something, how do you handle it? How do you try to cope with it?
So I've been home now for almost 10 years. I've had a lot of time to adjust and cope with that. Also, let's not discredit the fact that like life is hard.
Yeah.
No matter what your station, your status, your demographic, your geographical location, like life is going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, the closest like trigger that kind of pops up that I deal with often is I have to pump gasoline. Right. I was in an explosion. So the smell of gasoline and the click of the tank, you don't ever know when it's going to pop, right? So
wow.
Just really trying to ground myself, and I get a whole countdown. My tank is going to go empty, and I get to watch as it goes down to prepare myself mentally to fill up for gas again.
Yeah.
No,
and that's so true. It's just everyday stuff.
Right.
I mean, just like you said, at some point, unless you stay at home all the time, that car is going to go down towards empty.
Yeah.
So, Edgar, when you have things that trigger you, how do you try to cope with them and handle them?
Well, I didn't know I have PTSD. I get a diagnosis from medicine, and over there is a bit a hard way to know myself nowadays. And the PTSD is part of it. I have many intrusive memories that I didn't know that is part of this trauma.
Right.
And I'm just finding myself and find a way to get through this.
Yeah. You know what? And Ed, I think the other two of you would agree that that's really the only way to do it is just to really try to get through this every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The only way out is through.
Yeah.
And there's little things that can help too, like breathing techniques, mental exercises, stuff like that you can learn. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps a lot. But there's a lot of little things you can do. One of the biggest things that I do is I try and distract myself and change my thinking. Now that took a lot of time, and I'm still working on it. So by no means am I an expert at changing my thought patterns, especially having borderline. But that's a big thing is trying to change. If something triggers me, I try to immediately do my breathing exercises. I try and find something else to distract me. I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, too, as just to keep me busy. Yeah. So hobbies help, just things that relax you and help you calm down and help you take your mind off what's going on helps me a lot.
Yeah, well, and also things like your service dog, Harper.
Yep.
Service dogs can be very helpful for vets.
Yep.
Yeah. How does Harper help you when you go out?
Well, for one thing, she's a focus. I'm always focused on her. She's focused on me. And so it helps me distract me when I'm in public. And, because even though she's a very well-trained service dog, she's still a dog. And I still worry that, she's going to act out or something like that. But, she does help me a lot because she is 100% attuned to me. Right. And her focus is on me. And when she sees I'm having a rough time, she'll get up on my lap. I've been training her on doing that to do deep pressure therapy where she'll lay across me, and which surprisingly enough works like a weighted blanket. I never thought that something as simple as a dog laying across you and the weight of her would help, but it does. And so she does
and that's a lot of weight.
Yeah, she's pushing 50 pounds. So.
Oh no, she's not. She's pushing 60.
Yeah, I know she's getting a little fat, but she's a big girl. But she at least I don't have to lift her into the car anymore, because I used to have to do that because she wouldn't jump up into the SUV. So I had to pick her up and get her in there. But now she gets up on her own. Now she figured it out. But she does a lot, and it's the little things that help. It doesn't have to be big. It's little things that help.
Well, and
add up.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that was how I was going to say. They just add up. Little things add up. So don't think that there's no silver bullet, one thing that helps. They're just doing a lot of little things, all add up and help out a lot.
Yeah, and I can tell you this, because your service dog and my service dog both were trained at the same place. That Harper, when she sees that you're getting really triggered and starting to panic or starting to go into a little freak out mode, she will pull you away from the scene. Yeah, and try to pull you out of that situation.
Yeah, or she'll get up on me or jump up on me standing up with, nudge my hand. She does that a lot, lick my hand, so she does a lot of little things too to help out.
Yeah. So Blue, do you have anything, maybe not a service dog, but do you have anything that you use to help control some of your triggers?
I have considered getting a service dog for quite some time. I can't make the commitment yet, but I just recently acquiesced to the idea that maybe I do need anxiety medicine for whenever I'm having panic attacks. And I have a necklace that has a little vial. It just looks like a pretty pendant, but I can open it up and take anxiety medicine if I need to.
Good.
Most of my friends, they're kind of just aware. I try to be authentic in my expression and personality. So that transparency is really important. So they know if I'm gone for a little while, I'm probably recollecting myself.
Yeah. And Ed, beyond your family, is there anything else that you kind of use to cope with your PTSD?
I use things and the exercise, maybe play a game. It's working for me to read about it, to get information about autism. How can I make to help other people in similar situations? To me, it's very important. So I read a lot. I mean, this is the way I escape from it.
Well, you know what, Ed, that's good that you're trying to educate yourself on what you're dealing with, because the more knowledge you have, the more you can help yourself.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So, no, just for me, for my fans and for other people too.
Well, and I think that's the reason we're all willing to come on and do this, is because it's not just us. This message can help even one person, and it was worth the hour that we spent.
One thing I want to say, I don't know if I'm having a little problems hearing Ed, but I think I caught it where he says, talking about helping other people. I don't know if that's what he had said.
Yeah.
That's what I'm having a hard time hearing Ed too.
Yeah. That's a great thing to do. Volunteering. I volunteer with the Boy Scouts. I did Cub Scouts too with my son, but I volunteer with the Boy Scouts as well. Focusing on other people and not yourself, getting out of your own head and helping other people is a great way to help deal with, what's going on inside. It's a nice break.
The one thing you have to say is you've got to limit that.
Right.
Because you can help people too much to where you hurt yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one thing I have to watch myself. Even though I have oodles of time on my hands, I got to be very careful with how I spend my time, because I can't, because of my diagnosis, handle. I can't work. I can't hold a job. I can't commit to very many things for very long because they'll stress me out. One of the few things I've been able to commit to is playing D&D online. I'm running 3 games right now. Possibly going to start a fourth. I'm trying to get some games together with some vets. One of the things I want to do is veterans and Dungeons and Dragons, and because playing role-playing games, getting out of your head, being somebody else for an hour, couple hours is great. It's a fun game, but yeah, focusing outside of yourself, whether it's volunteer work, whether it's gaming, whatever it is that you're doing, socializing, fantastic. But yes, you got to be very careful about not overextending yourself or putting yourself so far thin that you do more damage than good.
Right. And when you put that game together, by the way, don't forget that I'm a vet.
Yeah, I know you're on the list, dude.
So,
I get one.
all
So
right.
I work
All right.
support. Blue, you interested in playing?
It's funny that you and Blue and I all did the same job. I was a corpsman in the Navy during the Gulf War, though I never left the San Diego area.
Yeah.
It's still a hard job no matter where you go.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, we would go up to Camp Pendleton, and the ship that I was assigned to was a landing ship for tanks. So they had the amphibious tanks that would come out to us, and we would do drills with them and spend a few days doing that.
Yeah, and somebody always gets hurt. Somebody does something stupid, fall out of a vehicle, close a hatch on themselves. I've done that. I've done those training where I did medical coverage for the National Guard and stuff like that. And those guys, man, when they go out to train, they go hardcore and they hurt themselves a lot.
Yeah. Blue, what would you say to somebody that is just getting diagnosed or is dealing with PTSD, not in a good way? What advice would you give them?
The first thing I would say is there's nothing wrong with you. Because usually it's my friends that come to me, or, like I've had a couple of friends battle with this idea of schizophrenia. And the analogy that I always give whenever anyone I know is faced with difficult decisions medically, I say you have a child and they can't see, they need glasses. You're not going to tell them to just buck up and see better. You're going to get them some glasses.
Mine did.
So if there's something that helps increase your standard of living, pursue it, because there is nothing wrong with you. We're all designed uniquely for a reason.
Right.
Yeah,
and
a great point, Blue, is that there is nothing wrong with you. While we've for years heard something's wrong with you, you're broken or anything like that. No, there's nothing wrong with you. I mean, not saying that there's nothing going on. It's just saying that you're not broken. You are not damaged. You're not defective or any of those negative words. You are a human being, and you deserve a good standard of living. And like Blue said, if you had a heart condition, diabetes, or anything like that, you would take your meds. You would go to the doctor. You would do all those things. So why not do the same thing for your mental health as well?
Yeah, and sometimes you feel, or we all feel, broken down, but that doesn't mean we're broken.
Right.
Sick and tired of being sick and tired, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Edgar, what advice would you have for anybody, that you run across that's having a hard time dealing with their PTSD?
Well, I think look for help and help yourself. I mean, looking for someone that get out of this thing and get you on your feet. Look for something that make you feel good. Hey, this one is wrong. I mean, every experience is unique, and we have to learn about it and maybe teach about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Jason, what?
Yeah,
go ahead. You're kind of leading this whole thing, so.
Well, let's talk a little bit about prevention and maintenance for
Okay.
a second. So now we've talked about triggers and how we deal with them. What about, let's talk about a little bit about some things you can do to set, like what Blue says. When she's looking at the needle on her gas tank, she's seeing you get down low. She starts mentally getting herself, steeling yourself up, ready to go to the gas pumps. Same thing with anything else. There's a lot of things you can do preventively to take care of yourself ahead of time. and mentally to help take care of yourself and mentally get yourself ready for things that you don't want to do or don't like to do, things that might trigger you.
Mhm.
So, being proactive is very important too with this diagnosis, because so often we're reactive to it instead, where it happens and we react to it.
Yeah.
Instead of, let's see what we can do instead to mitigate, minimize, possibly even avoid a trigger,
Right.
and so it's very important to be very, very aware of your mental state, your mental health, and very important to be insightful of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Know who you are.
Yep.
And like what Ed said, education. Know your diagnosis. Research. The internet is full of great places, especially like National Institute of Health, WebMD. Don't go to the Joe Blow website. Go to the big ones.
Go to something legit.
Yeah, something legit and talking about it. So don't get all your information off Facebook. As great as Facebook is as social media, it's not a great place for education.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I will say one good site that has a huge PTSD group is the Mighty.
Mm-hmm.
At themighty.com. I work with some of their, am part of some of their autism groups, and I know that they have great PTSD groups too. And
remembering that not one size fits all, right? Like,
right.
You could be misdiagnosed. One of my girlfriends who was recently diagnosed with autism was treated for PTSD for almost 20 years. She's been autistic this whole time.
Yeah.
Like, now she actually has coping skills. Like, now she can, like, for me, one of my things, that noise crazy, sorry.
Yeah.
I have epilepsy, so going to a rock concert with a lot of lights would be silly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So respecting your guidelines and limitations.
Yeah. And, Blue, the one thing I will say also is when that tank gets near empty, you can always toss your car keys to your husband and say, "Here, go."
I try really hard not to avoid that.
Gotcha.
Diagnosis is not common in autistic community, and like Blue said, I mean, a lot of autistic people get treatment for another things that it doesn't fix anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I had a small stroke 19 years ago. In the first year and a half, they were diagnosing it as MS and putting me on different MS medicines, because MS hits in your 30s. Strokes don't normally happen until your 40s or 50s. And I was 38. So they just automatically went to the MS diagnosis.
Yeah.
So that was a year and a half of no therapy, no anything other than trying different combinations of MS medicine that obviously weren't doing anything to help me.
Yeah, being your own advocate is so important. I'm always talking about that too, as being a self-advocate for your medical and mental health. Being educated about it. I mean, one thing my doctor doesn't like is the fact that I am a combat medic and I am educated on medical stuff. He does not like that at all. He likes his patients ignorant, and that's a problem with the VA system. He's a good doctor, mind you, but he was very unhappy with me when I came in loaded for bear on with him on our first visit, and I'm going over. I got this, and he's like, "Well, it sounds like you're reading off a list and this and that." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because my memory sucks, so that's why I got it all written down. But that doesn't change the fact I got all these signs and symptoms of PTSD, dude." And but he didn't like that that I was educating myself on this stuff. But being your own advocate is so important. Speaking up, especially when you think you're misdiagnosed or something's not right. Because you know what, your doctor's handling 30, 40 patients, a huge load, and they can't be 100% on everybody. And so they kind of have to depend on you to be able to speak up when something's not working right, whether the medication's not working right, treatment or therapy's not working right. Be your own advocate.
Well, you have to, because unless you've been with the doctor for many, many years and the doctor's had a chance to get to kind of know you and the way you are, you're the only person who can really say, this is what I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
You know your body better than anyone else.
Yep. Well, and your brain included in the body.
Yes.
Yeah, we might not always know what's going on up there, but we know that something's not right or something's not working right.
Or something's
Could
different.
be. Yeah, something's different. And so, you may not know exactly what's going on, but don't discount your instincts when you say something's not right. Something's not clicking here.
Yeah.
I have little bit, a little experience with this. The psychologist that diagnostic medicine help us a lot to get the path to we can walk. But we get to the point that she is learning from us. I mean, she's learning about what we feel every day, what we live every day, what the struggles that we must fight every day. But not every professional has the modest to learn from us. So many of them, like Jason said, they want to ignore people close to them. So many
Yeah.
of the people that is close to my psychologist, she
Mm-hmm.
said it has an autistic trait, and she doesn't know how to treat adults autism. She's a specialist in child, so it's hard for her. But we are
Yeah.
working together to get through and to learn everyone, to learn each other.
And that's great. That is awesome when that happens. So, Blue, for lack of a better term, how do you go about coming out to people about your PTSD and telling them about it?
Usually I mean, like, if I don't have to say anything about it, I don't.
Of
Maybe
course.
I could be more forward with that information, because you can smell authenticity a mile away,
Oh, yeah.
just like you can smell or you can see like the physiognomy of a person
Mm-hmm.
whenever they think something's off with you,
Yeah.
So I'd say that information has to be earned and
Oh,
trusted.
no, of course. And I'm not saying that you should just go around telling everybody, hey,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I guess I'm asking, when your husband and your close friends,
yeah.
there, I think you've got to do it in your own way, on your own time, after you've thought through all the repercussions of it, and then go ahead and go for it. Would you agree?
Yes, and usually it comes in the form of kids have balloons at their birthday parties,
Yeah.
or they want to play with water guns. I will absolutely not let my children play with anything weaponized.
Yeah.
So I'll say, hey, that makes me a little uncomfortable. I don't really give the background information. I don't stem too deep. Some of my friends don't even know that I'm a veteran. They just know I don't like water guns or balloons.
Okay. And people aren't always stupid.
Right.
Sometimes they are. And maybe some of those people put two and two together, but just don't say anything.
And that's grateful.
Exactly.
I'm grateful, right? Like, if we don't have to talk about it, then it's fine. I want to be treated like a regular person.
Yeah.
You know? I have offers and insight, and my opinions are valuable. But putting that blanket statement on there can be a crutch often.
Exactly. And like Jason and I have talked about before, with things like autism, which I'm a self-advocate and speaker, writer about, people don't understand it, and people fear what they don't understand. And I don't think people fully understand what PTSD is.
Mm-mm.
Edgar, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I didn't know what people are,
Right.
and I have a hard time to understand myself about it.
Right.
In fact, my wife see it before I see it.
Yeah.
So that's for me, it's an amazing information because it's inside me, and she can see it before I do.
Exactly.
It has no sense in a way.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and that's great that you have somebody in your life who can do that for you. So, Jason, let's talk about people not understanding PTSD.
Yeah.
Do you think PTSD is portrayed correctly in the media, or is it made out to be something that it's really not?
Unfortunately, PTSD does have a very bad rap because of, especially post Vietnam, when you have a lot of vets that were not being treated, were self-medicating with alcohol and drugs and stuff like that, and then they would flip the F out and shoot up a post office or something like that. And that's the image a lot of people have of PTSD, that you're just one hair trigger away from flipping out and killing everybody. And that is not what it's all about. Very rarely does somebody act out on PTSD. Most of the time we internalize and we harm ourselves.
Yeah.
The suicide rate is unreal. 22 a day. Veterans commit suicide every single day. Yes. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. If you are a veteran in crisis, when you get this number, press 1, and that'll take you straight to an advocate trained with veterans. There's also there's also a website too. Unfortunately, I can't remember off the top of my head. I just saw it earlier today on the news for veterans. It's like veterancrisisline.net or something like that. I got to do that. We'll find the resources and put them up on Facebook. But a lot of times the media has portrayed us as just monsters, just hiding in plain sight, waiting for an excuse to go off, or that we're delicate, and that firecrackers will set you off, or and then you flip out.
Yeah. Hey, Jason, I just looked it up, and it is veterancrisisline.net.
Oh man, my memory's actually doing good today.
Sorry, veterans with an S.
Yes, veteranscrisisline.net, or going to the National Suicide Prevention Line. But yeah, we have been so misportrayed. But it's coming around, especially after the last 20 years with this war. It is coming around, and the VA system's improving, although it's still got a long ways to go. Active duty, they're being more proactive in treatment and prevention and stuff like that too. So education has got to be the big key. Educating the public, educating your family, your friends, people around you, coworkers, about this diagnosis and what it really is and what it's not.
Right. Now, Edgar, you come from a different part of the world than the rest of us do. So how do you think the media portrays people with PTSD? Is it correct, or is it often made up?
I'm sorry, I'm hear a lot of noise about this. From 2 minutes ago, I can hear your question very well.
Yeah, he put it on the chat if you see the private chat. Do you have like headphones that you can plug in, Ed?
Yeah, hang on.
I have one yet.
Okay, well, then Blue, while we're doing that, what about you? Do you think the media portrays people with PTSD correctly?
Absolutely not.
Right. And it's for the worst, correct?
Yes. I mean, I see myself being treated delicately, or like a ticking time bomb, or like a thing to be, like a deplorable creature to be pitied and tolerated at best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not like, hey, I defended your freedom, like I sacrificed this because I want to make the world a better place, but
right,
you belong over here.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think it's just PTSD. I think it's mental health in general that gets very stigmatized and made out to be a lot more than it is in the media.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's one of those things where one of my favorite quotes came from the movie The Joker, which was, the worst thing about having a mental illness is that people expect you to act as if you do not.
Right.
And that is the problem, is when we start acting out because of our diagnosis, because of our mental health diagnosis or health, people don't understand. They don't understand the bizarre behaviors that we might sometimes do, or the way we think, or the way we react to things. And so it becomes a big mystery to some of them, where they're like, I don't understand why you can't fill up your gas tank. Why seeing images on the news will set you off, or, all those things. People just don't know. And unfortunately, it's fallen onto us, those of us who have it, to educate. And it shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't have to have that burden upon us to educate the public when there's so much information out there available.
right. And Ed, if you look on the right side of your screen where it says private chat, I just wrote out the question that I was asking, which is, do you think the media shows PTSD in the correct way where you live?
Uh-oh,
And
we
he's
just
gone.
lost him.
Okay, well, but we got about 14 minutes left. So why don't we start talking about the ultimate part of PTSD, which is when you get to the point where you feel suicidal?
Yeah.
I've got to plug in my computer. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, that's all right.
You're still
Yeah,
here.
that is the thing about it. No matter what your diagnosis is, when you're feeling suicidal, get help. I'm a suicide survivor. I had made an attempt a couple of years ago after I had started Abilify. It was a bad reaction to medication. It wasn't because of anything going on in my life, but my then wife didn't understand why this happened or why I tried to hurt myself. And so, suicidal thoughts, there's nothing wrong with having them. There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. What comes a problem is when you start acting out on those, and you start making plans, and you start really dwelling on death and stuff like that. That's when things start going off the rails. And that's when you definitely need to be reaching out to somebody, anybody, for help.
Yeah. Well, I've never attempted suicide, but I definitely understand the concept of why somebody would.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
Blue,
the extreme hopelessness is what it was for me.
yeah. Blue, what would you say to anybody who's thinking of committing suicide?
We need you here.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like,
Yeah.
the people in the world who have these big, big feelings, they're so valid. And whenever, I survived my suicide attempt, I was very, very angry that I made it out.
At yourself?
Yeah, at the world, like, because
Okay.
I was unsuccessful in that attempt. And it's only taken me until recently to be like, well, I'll be expletive.
Yeah.
This is worth it. Like, I don't know, just the world needs to know your big feelings. The world needs to know what has people feeling that way, because unfortunately, like, these high rates of suicide are the only things that have received attention in the past. It's not why does it happen and how can we prevent it, so much as like pushing it off as, there is evil in this world, right? So if you have these big feelings and you like they're big enough for you to want to end your life, don't be alone. For one, that was my big mistake, was isolating myself. But like, let people know how you feel if you can. Let your friends know if you start getting quiet. It's usually because you're going to your dark place. And my friends know to reach out to me now, because I didn't think I had people I could talk to, because
Right.
it's taboo, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
but that's the important. I think that's one very, very important thing, Blue, is those who do know about it and those who are closest to you need to know what to look for.
Yeah. And everybody's a little bit different too, And if you're on the other side of it, the receiving end of that phone call, you don't have to have the answers. All you need to do is listen. That is it. You don't need to give advice. You don't need to say, "Well, buck up, we'll be fine," or anything like that. Give encourage. If you do give anything, give encouragement. Let them know that you care about them, that you want them around. Like Blue said, that is so important. But other than that, don't be a doctor. Don't be a psychiatrist or psychologist. Just listen, and that's oftentimes all we need is just somebody to validate and listen to us.
Yeah. Edgar, what would you say to somebody that was thinking about committing suicide?
Well, I have a few years that I have that thought too. I mean, I understand that the people to that point, it has to be a lot of feelings, any feeling. Maybe it's angry, maybe it's pain, but no matter where it comes from, it's perfect valid and it can be solved in a way. I mean, it's not bad to feel strongly. I mean, it's not bad to have feelings intensity that make us feel like I I can get through this. We can. That
Right.
make it stronger.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
that maybe help someone
So,
getting or doing that help.
yeah. So, as we get to the last 9 or 10 minutes of this, Blue, is there anything we haven't talked about that you think people should hear or understand?
We're in this together. I need you just as much. Like, if I could take away all of your pain and your suffering, I would absolutely put it upon myself. I can't, but I can listen. If you reach out, I will hear you. So, thanks for being here.
Yeah, and I think that's very important is, that you actively listen to the person and hear what they're saying and understand what they're saying. Um, I I can tell you that growing up in California, I had a couple of friends who, when I would be having a really bad time and I would, call them and vent with them, their answer would be, "Wow, bro, that sucks." It's got to be more than that. It's got to be you actually listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, would you agree?
Yeah, and you don't have to understand though. You don't have to
No.
understand what they're going through, but you got to listen and hear what they're saying and listen to what they're saying. So important, when you're on that other end of that phone call or text message or in person, is
Right.
to be
The knock on your doorstep.
yeah, be
Yeah.
empathetic. Show even though you
As best
can't,
you can.
yeah, as best as you can, and you don't have to understand everything. You just need to be there, and that's what
Yeah.
we need most of the time. Is just somebody to be there and know that we're not out by ourselves in this.
Yeah, and they've just recently done a study with people on the spectrum and people not on the spectrum called the double empathy problem, and what it showed is that it's hard for us to have empathy for them because we don't understand what they're going through, but it's hard for them to have empathy with us. And I think it's really the same way with PTSD. You don't have to be empathetic because you probably don't completely understand what that person is going through, but you can be there for them.
Right.
Edgar, what do you, in the last few minutes, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think we should?
Well, there's a lot of things going on my mind, but I just want to say thank you for this phone. I mean, it's very important, and not just for us, because for other people in same situations or similar situations that maybe they feel alone and we're not. I mean, there's a lot of people getting through this, and we can help each other and learn from each other. And keep going. So,
Yeah. And one thing I would say is if you don't feel like you've got somebody that you personally know that you can call or talk to, I mean, there's tons of Facebook groups, for PTSD and trauma and whatnot. And, like I say to people on the autism ones, hey, if you have nobody else to talk to, hit me up.
Oh yeah, I see that all the
because
time.
I'll listen.
Yeah, I see that all the time in those groups. I'm in a lot of those groups for bipolar, PTSD, and stuff like that. And it's great to know that on social media you can reach out, and there is somebody out there in this planet who will listen to you and connect with you. So,
Right.
even if you don't have friends all over the place, you know what? There are resources out there. You just got to be a little creative, get a little outside of the box, and be willing to put yourself out there. That's going to be really the hardest thing, is putting yourself out there and being vulnerable to somebody else, especially to a complete stranger. Sometimes that's easier. If somebody doesn't know you and you'll never see them unless ever again, that might be even easier for you to reach out. It just depends on the individual. So, find those resources, do your searches and stuff like that. Try and cultivate those relationships. It's so important to have them.
Yeah. And, I would also say that if someone comes to you and you don't really understand what they're going through, listen and learn. Because you're going to learn, the people you're going to learn from the best are not the doctors. It's from you three sitting right here and other people that are actually dealing with PTSD on a daily basis. The medical stuff is great, the research and whatever, but it's not nearly the same as talking firsthand with somebody who's dealing with it.
And everybody's a little bit different too. I like that saying that you have, JR. I can't remember who had said it was. If you met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. It's the same.
Yeah, Dr. Stephen Shore. It's PTSD. If you met one person with PTSD, well, then you've met one person with PTSD, because nobody's PTSD is exactly the same as anybody else's.
Yeah, because we all are different and we all react differently to stress.
Yep.
And those reactions are because it matters.
Right.
Yeah, it's when it doesn't matter anymore. That's when it's time to that's when it's a red flag.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to thank Blue and Edgar for joining us today. We had a great time. This was a great discussion, and it's something that I think is definitely not talked about enough. So, Jason, you and I will be back next week with another show.
Yep.
But again, Edgar and Blue, thank you very much for being willing to get on camera and talk about your stories to people, because I guarantee you this will help at least one person, and that's all worthwhile.
I'm looking for it. Simple.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, we will see you next week. And again, thank you to Blue and Edgar.
Yep. Thank you for coming on. It was great.
Yeah, it was awesome.